minus 1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Well, technical difficulties are springing up again as I was just trying to change something. But since we're here, we gonna skip the intro. What's up? What's good? What's happening? Welcome to the King and Me Show. I'm one half of this thing, King.
Hey y'all, it's me, Michelle. How y'all doing?
Let us know how our audio is sounding. As last week we were having some technical syncing issues that I am crossing my fingers I have worked out and that it is resolved. So if you could let us know in the chat that the audio and our lips are syncing and we don't sound like one of those old 1970 Asian movies that where they looked and sounded like that, we would greatly appreciate it. We here at the King and Me Show attempt to offer a real outlook on a healthy relationship, real being relatable,
entertaining,
accountable,
and loving.
I'm still holding this mic in my hand, which last week wasn't that difficult for me, but I do need to find an alternative ASAPidly so that, I can do more things with my hands, be a little bit more productive, if you will.
I'm cold.
She's cold. Today is the first Monday in February. We have to move over our handy dandy calendar to see what we did last year in February 2024. I don't remember. I think I've gone through these, but I don't remember what February was in the calendar. So let's see. What do we have here? Audio sounds great. Thank you. This is a photo of Michelle and I. This is downtown Frederick at the rivers where they do like fire and ice, right? Or something like that.
And to see the boats. We did not see the boats this year.
We did not see the boats this year. Why didn't we see the boats this year? I had surgery.
That's not why. The boats have been out since November.
We've been busy. You've been busy? I've been busy? Busier than you? I don't know about that.
I do.
Interesting. All right. So our sounds good. Last year in February, we went downtown in our local area to see the boats or whatnot. And Michelle is both cold and tired. Babe, are you okay?
I'm cold.
Okay. That was like 3 yawns in a minute. I don't know if we're going to be able to get through this live stream today.
I'm good.
All right. She says she's good. Now, today's live stream, it was inspired by the Dear Future Wifey podcast that is hosted by Latarius Whitfield. He is an author, a speaker. I know he's in the church, and he does a couple of other things, but his Dear Future Wifey podcast has really exploded, and he's had some memorable guests on there. I watch it. I like to hear how other people view life and things like that, and most of the people that he have on his podcast are really positive people,
including one of my high school classmates and his wife, Randy and Alicia Sneed. They came on the latter half of 24, so it was really nice to see Baltimore up in the building. Loved it.
Hey, and Mr. Whitfield, if you and your people would like to get us on, check out our story and let's talk.
Okay.
But the clips that we're bringing up today is from, I would call her a successful, famous, depending on what circles that you fall in, content creator, a young lady by the name of Jess Whitty. Jess Whitty does Christian humor, young women Christian humor. She was an athlete growing up in high school, as from what I understand, following her, I think she played college as well. And she has a very successful Instagram page. She's also on YouTube and Facebook as well, but Instagram is where she's really gained a following of people. And she talks about, or talked about, being a virgin, being someone that was saving themselves for marriage, and being somebody that was finding a husband while being a young Christian. And you would even sometimes see her talk about being a young Christian of color.
Mm-hmm.
So her story is really interesting. She recently just got married, and the way that she popped off with her marriage surprised a lot of people that don't necessarily know her intimately. She kept her relationship extremely private. She kept the marriage private until she decided to share it on her Instagram page. And a lot of people that don't know her intimately were surprised and happy for her. And we are too, especially if you find somebody that y'all align, y'all values align, and y'all make things work out. As you'll hear us say often, and other people, even folks that have been married 20 or so plus years, that relationships can be difficult. They can be difficult. They're going to have their ups and downs. And as you're going through life, sometimes you're sitting here asking yourself, is this worth it? We're going to see that in some of the clips that we have today. And Michelle and I are going to offer some of our commentary. I produced the show. She doesn't know what clips that I clipped for us to talk about. And there's one in particular that I'm going to highlight, that I'm going to call Jess Whitty and her husband out on, that I wish that Latarius Whitfield also called them out on. He got a little bit into it, but then he backed off. And I think it's because they're friends. But you can't be friends with me, because I'm going to push the envelope in asking you certain things that you present, but you're not authentic about. So we're going to, I might have a clip where I'm questioning their authenticity on how they delivered stuff. But before we do get into that, I feel as though with what we do in our content, that Michelle is as authentic as we can be on social media. How do you feel about that? Do you think we're as authentic as we can be, or do we hide things from the general public?
Nope. I think we share as much as we can, considering the jobs that we have. So yeah.
No doubt. All right, let's see if we have any additional comments before we continue. Shout out to Tarika. Tarika's in the building. Said, hey, King and Queen, how we doing? How we feeling? Look, I'm good. I'm about 80% post-surgery. Still have like minor aches and pains, but it is to be expected when you have a whole defibrillator implanted into your body. But I'm doing well. Thanks for asking, Michelle.
I'm doing well. Thank you.
All right. And look, we do have super chats available, as well as Cash App support. If that's something that you find it in your heart to do, shoot us a Cash App or a super chat as well. Everything that we have received so far through donations, we've put back into our live stream to try to bring the best thing possible as we build this global media empire. All right. So, Michelle, do you have anything before we jump into our first clip?
Yes, so February is Black History Month, and today King and I are rocking our Medgar Evers shirt. I know I got it from a museum in the South, and I feel like it was in Atlanta, but I can't remember the name of the museum. I've been to so many museums. I know that it was a wonderful learning opportunity. I remember everything that was in the museum, the exact layout of the museum. I even remember in the bookstore where I got this shirt, but I cannot remember the name of the museum. But our shirts say, freedom has never been free. If you're not familiar with who Medgar Evers is, all I'm going to tell you is do your homework and do your research. Excellent civil rights leader, and someone who should be a name that readily rolls off of your tongue. So definitely get to know him. And before you say that all he did was civil rights and like that's not enough, he is also a U.S. Army veteran. So even though he is long gone, home with our Lord, still want to thank him and his family for his service. So definitely check out Medgar Evers if you aren't familiar with him. And remember, freedom has never been free. Happy Black History Month.
No doubt, no doubt. I appreciate you taking the time to do that. Now, we're streaming across multiple platforms: Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, X. I feel like I'm missing something off the top of my head right now. But if there's a like button on the platform, do us a favor, hit that like button. That helps us out on the algorithm. That's the algorithm. Why is algorithm 4 syllables? You know what? We're not here for that. So the first clip is to give you an idea of who Just Witty is. Let me see if I can go back over. All right. This is going to be an idea of who Just Witty is. And this was one of the clips that went ultra viral on the Dear Future Wifey podcast. Take a look.
You'll be like, God can't disappoint you. You know, he's a good father. He is. You know, and he has the best intentions for you. His plans are to prosper. Yeah. Bring you to an expected end. But your life does not. Oh my God. Oh my God. Bruh, you gonna get this? I can't even reach you. This is beyond.
The way Lateris was cracking up had tears coming out of my face. Now, I saw that episode before that specific clip went viral, but you knew when you watched it that clip, if they clipped it, was going to go ultra viral. What Lateris talked about in this episode that we're about to get clips on is that other people clipped it first. And then he reached out to her and said, hey, this clip is doing numbers. Do I have your permission to post it? And she said, sure. And then he posted it on his platform and it still started doing numbers. So did you see that clip live or not live, but early as it first came out?
I mean, like when it originally came out, yeah.
Okay.
It's still trending. Like it's still trending to this day.
Over 300 million views.
Mm-hmm.
That is insane.
Yep.
That can definitely change your life. And it's something that they talked about later on that if I can recall to do this, we'll circle back to it. There was something that Whitney or Just Witty talked about in which she wasn't open and very closed off to some things and almost blocked her blessings by not allowing herself to be open.
Okay.
We got some celebrities in the building. We already talked about Tarika, same last name as me, but we not related. We also got Free T up in this joint, a celebrity in her own right. She does content over on YouTube. Go give her a sub and a follow and check out her content as well. We appreciate you popping in and tuning in. We should also have David Cunningham. David, if you're watching, make yourself known. I'm calling him out specifically. Okay. Now, the next clip that I'm going to highlight here, let me see if I can bring this up. I have to remember what it's called. I'm glad that I labeled everything. Okay, so this is healing or hearing things through a broken ear. And one of the things that we always talk about is communication and how things can go sideways depending on how things are said and how things are heard. So take a listen and we'll come back and talk about it.
I'm a reference what was said. Because I need people to be able to understand how we hear one thing, somebody says this, and you heard it through a broken ear.
I just found it because I'm still moving. Yeah, I just found a note. But one of the notes I said wrote down was he said, I don't care about your problem. And someone could hear that and be like, oh, you don't care about your father. But then I took it broken. Like, oh, I haven't worked for nothing. Like, you're trying to downplay my father, which is wild. But it was points like that.
Yeah.
And at this time, I was really gauging if I could even be in a healthy relationship. Like, I was journaling with myself. I would invite the Lord. I'm like, one of my notes, which was really, really real, was I don't know if I'll be able to be loved.
I don't know if I'll be able to be loved.
So I think one of the things that we should definitely mention is, so again, that's just Whitty. Her name is Whitney Nay Davis, because she is now Moss, and that is her husband, who is sitting to her right. And I'm sure you'll cover it later, but just to kind of give some background. So the first clip that he showed was from 2002. It released in October 2022. And the clip that we are seeing now is from her just going back on the show with her now husband from January 2025. And the interesting thing to note is that she got in a whole relationship, was with her man for 2 years, got married, and was married for a solid 3 months before she even publicly released anything. Matter of fact, she was married for almost 2 months before we even knew she was in a relationship. And then we found out that she was married right as this was about to air. She started posting things on her social, because I do follow her on one of my Instagram pages.
Same.
So she started posting things on her social, like images of her wedding. But it turns out that said wedding took place on October 27th, 2024. So we're finding out 3 months later that she was in a relationship, she got married, and all the things. So just to kind of catch you up. So that person to her right is her hubby.
Thanks. That background is actually really important, and I wish that it was covered earlier. So I appreciate you putting that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the clip that we just played, what was just before that, and I didn't want to clip everything because it would have been too long, was he was telling her, I'm here for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to support you. I don't care about your following. I want to support you. And what heard through her broken ear, y'all heard her say, she interpreted like, wait, you don't care about all the hard work that I put in? And when I first heard that, I paused it because I was like, that ain't what he said.
But here's the thing. So like when you're hearing things through a broken lens, you're also taking in how other things are said in society. So like one of the things we hear all the time in society is, oh, I don't see race or anything like that. And we're conditioned that when we hear, I don't see this or I don't see that, it's coming from I'm ignoring that part of who you are. Like there's a level of intersectionality and I'm ignoring the things that are coming to that intersection. Whereas that's how like she heard it, that he's ignoring a part of who her identity is. And I can get where she came from with that. And I can understand how are you okay?
Mm-hmm. I'm monitoring all the things.
How she got to that conclusion. But at the end of the day, you're right. Like, that's not how he meant it. He meant it in that stuff does not matter more to me than who you are.
I believe that happens way too often, where people will respond to something and it gets to something that we're going to talk about a little bit later, in which you're looking at trying to sabotage things. And when that happens, the person on the other end might have a confused look on their face like, wait, what are we even talking about right now?
But I think that's something that shouldn't be ignored. Like, the reality is we all hear things through the lens of our hurt and our pain. Because as long as we're still living, as long as there's still breath in our body, we still have areas of our life that we need to heal from. And we hear a lot of things through our trauma. That's the phrase. We hear a lot of things through our trauma. Even something that like you're not trying to have an ill reception or a point of view to, you do receive it through your trauma. And that's something that every single person needs to work on. It does just always come off in a bad light when it's the Black woman who's trying to work through her healing.
Let's put this relatable. Has that ever happened with us?
Yes.
Can you name a specific time?
So a specific time when that has happened, I think would be when I tell you that us being in the same space is not the same as us spending time together. And you're not understanding like what that means. And I say that because us occupying the same space is not quality time. That's just time. That's not the quality part of it is missing. And the quality time and the physical touch is something that I've communicated is something that I need in order to feel comfortable and feel secure in a moment, but not having that quality aspect of it and then also not having the physical touch is something that I don't equate as like us spending time together, as like us being in the same room. And I've said that to you. And I think when you hear me say that, and I'm making this assumption based on how you respond when I say that, what I've seen is that you're kind of just like, okay, heard or understood. And I'm like, yeah, that's not helpful. Like, I also have seen you respond questioning like that. But then, like, that makes it feel like my feelings in that moment aren't valid because I'm telling you how I feel. And in your mind, you're trying to replay the situation.
Yes, like I'm doing right now.
How you see it. But again, intent versus impact. However you intended something has no bearing on how it was received by me.
Okay, you said that very recently. What about the very recency made it so that you felt that way? Because I'm replaying things through my head and I'm like, I've done things proper in my opinion.
Well, I would say one of the greatest things that people don't understand about living together, dwelling together in one space is there's an assumption that because you and your partner come into the same household and you're in the same household for X amount of hours and you've closed the door, you've done all the things that you two were spending time together. And that's not. It's the two of you are in one place together. There's a big difference between that. And I think that kind of plays into how we hear and how we see things through our trauma and the time we've been together.
Okay, so I'm raising my hand. We had a movie night the other night. Does that not count?
That does count.
So then when I'm thinking about the most recent time that I heard it, I'm thinking about what between then and now was lacking. I'm not understanding.
I feel like that's a lot to say right now, especially since this particular segment doesn't play into it. But okay. So
we can table it if you feel as though it's not applicable to the current segment, we can table it.
Okay.
Then let's table it. We have some people in the building I want to acknowledge. Shout out to David Cunningham, DC. Him and I had a very good chat earlier today. I appreciate the phone call, David, and being able to tap in from time to time. David is a Marine. A Marine veteran. Sometimes when you're live, facts don't necessarily come together right. Served well over 30 some odd years and just recently decided to live life. And I want to give a salute to David Cunningham and our fellow Marine veterans as well. Shout out to my pops. Larry Smith is in the building, said, hello all with the waving hands. Salute to you, pops. And Tarika said, I agree with you, Queen. David Cunningham had a response that said, women are from A, and then it was blank. Finish that sentence, David. So, okay. On the clip that we were just talking about before I sidetracked us, Whitney was talking about how she heard things from a broken ear, and her now husband was telling her that he didn't care about her supporters or anything. He just wants to support her and love on her. And she heard that through a broken ear. And I believe later on, I'm going to have a follow-up that talks about how she got through that. So let's go to our next clip and see what we have here. Oh, all right. So the next clip that I'm going to bring up here, her husband, when they were going through 2 years of courting / dating, when he was really trying to get to know her, he reached out to her several times, shot his shot, and was missing like Draymond Green trying to shoot threes. Shaq trying to shoot free throws. He gave 4 shots, wrote this whole paragraph of, I am trying to get to know you. Come holler at me. Allow me to be in your space. And Whitney just had this brick wall up about her. And I couldn't get the clip in which she talked about how hardened she was to really meeting people. But the part that was confusing me is on her social media and on her page, she would talk about being a woman that's single and looking for a husband, trying to find your husband. Yet she's out here blocking people that are really trying to get to know her and are having her best interest. And in the full live stream, which I have the link in our YouTube description, she spoke about being in certain circles, and the host and her are really good friends. And the host was like, yeah, people would ask about her all the time. And he's a Christian man running in Christian circles, yet he's like, yeah, I can link y'all up, but I know that that's not going anywhere, because Whit was hardened to really try to meet people. And to me, that's an oxymoron. If you say that you want to meet somebody, you should be open to meeting people. Yet she was giving people the Hakeem Olajuwon block anytime they would try to get to know her.
But see, I respect that, because number one, Christian does not mean the same to every single person. Like I said, some of the men that I've dated, every man that I've dated in the past, except for one guy, all of them have been Christians, saying that they believe the Lord Jesus Christ is their savior. They went to church at some point in time. Like, they know what the inside of a church looks like. All of them said that. However, when you have grown up around that, as I'm assuming she did, she needed to make sure that she wasn't allowing herself to be overly vulnerable with someone who was just going to take advantage of her, or someone who spoke a good game but didn't live up to it. So I can understand that. I will say, have a fence, have your picket fence, have your guarded fence. However, you do have to occasionally come to the gate to be able to talk to people to find out if it's okay. Now, that's where I will say, okay, she was kind of maybe a little bit difficult about that, because the first time he had come in her inbox, and I don't know if that's what you're about to play, the first time he had come in her inbox was like March of 2024, and she didn't respond to him until October 2024. Now, one would say, if they're watching that whole episode, that, is God. God is a good God, that she didn't respond back in March, because technically he was still in a on-again, off-again relationship in March. So when she did finally respond to him in October, or in November of 2022, he was single at that time. Mm-hmm. So, but I get it. Like, you do have to be guarded and protect yourself, because sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones that you open the door and let in because you believe in kindness, or because you are that Christian who's kind and open and loving to everyone. And those people that you let in that moment are the people who hurt you.
Yep. Now, the clip that I'm going to play is a little bit after the initial response from her to him. So I'm glad that you set that up very, very eloquently, if you will. And in this video, he's going to talk about what he wrote to her, where he said if he didn't get anything from her with this, he's not entirely too sure if this would have blossomed to what it is now. So let's take a listen.
I know there's only so much you can really know about a person through social media, but I have to say, you seem legit. I can tell that there's depth to you, and your relationship with Jesus seems authentic. I'd imagine with your platform, you get a lot of dudes shooting full court shots at you, and I'm sure you have to be selective about who you give your time and your attention to. I'm the same way. So I'm not going for the full court shot today. I'm just going to lay it up and see if you'd be open to simply getting to know me with no strings attached. It can even start here on IG through DM. And if that goes well, then maybe we can graduate to a call. Says, I know it can be risky giving people access, but I think this might be one of those times when the reward is worth the risk.
Talk DeAngelo. Let them know.
It says, you're a dope person, and I like to think that I'm pretty cool myself. I say that humbly. If you're open to it, I'll make it easy to start the conversation. Tell me about a recent experience when someone made you smile.
Listen,
Is that game? Was that all right?
DeAngelo.
Was that all right?
I know.
King.
I know. That's so good, ain't it?
Why you supposed to? Hold on.
Aw,
Listen,
that's so good.
that is perfect. What did she say after that?
Well,
Crickets.
indeed.
Crickets.
Wait, hold on.
No, wait a minute. Hold on now. Crickets. So that was 2 days. Now, the reason why it's crickets is because we were DMing back and forth every single day.
Yeah.
Every single
And
day.
then she stopped
And
responding.
this was a 3-paragraph.
Whew. So they had a little bit of back and forth, and he said that before he wrote this, they had been communicating every single day.
Mm-hmm.
What he also talked about during the full version of this video was that she didn't exchange numbers with him. They were just communicating through Instagram, which Instagram is almost a default dating app now. There was a study that came out today that said that Instagram is trending to be the #1 dating app, and it's free over your Match.coms, your Bumbles, and your Hinges. That is interesting to me.
But how successful is it?
I mean, people are hooking up. I wouldn't say that it would be successful for long term, but people are hooking up.
I mean, people hooked up on Plenty of Fish too, but that actually costs money. So
This is true.
how successful is it?
So 3 whole paragraphs for her to basically not respond for 2 days after having some back and forth every day. I don't think that the old me would have responded well to that. My ego then, before I became a little bit more of a healed person, and this is a double-edged sword, Willie, would have gone, oh, so this is how you're gonna treat me? You know what? I'm done with this. And I would have been done at that point. That's the old me. The new me actually still gets to the same conclusion. I would have been like, I don't think this person's worth it. My time is more valuable than what I'm getting back right now. So I'm done. I'm done.
I can respect that. Like, I can respect how someone, especially after all of that, and to know that there was no response that came from it. Looking at it from a man's point of view, I can completely understand. I would not have kept trying. Like, in general, like if it had been me, I wouldn't have kept trying. I wouldn't have gotten to that point. I'm a one and done type person. What was that? Like his 4th or so message to her after back and forth communication daily. It would have been a one and done. I would not have shot multiple shots. And I'm not even coming at it from the perspective of a woman shouldn't chase a man. Like, that's not even it. The way my patience or lack thereof is set up, I would not have. And I recognize that I have probably blocked so many different blessings that God has had for me. But I look at it like, Lord, you know your child that you created, and you know your child has no patience whatsoever. So about that, that's kind of where I would have been with that.
Now, when the clip goes further, he goes on and says that he saw her as somebody of value. And that's why he still continued. He goes on and say that the Lord told him that that's his wife. And that's why he did not want to let go of that. And that he could tell by talking with her that she wanted to let him in, but that she had some things that she had to work on. So that's why he said he still pursued things. But there's going to be a clip that I play a little bit later on in which Whitney did something called self-sabotage. And that's something that you talked about today. And I think you wrote about fairly recently too.
Actually, no, it's in my blog coming out on the 17th.
Okay, about sabotage. And I don't know about y'all. I can think of one time that I sabotaged something, and it was the right thing to do, meaning that I wasn't ready. I sabotaged, and I was talking about it with a coworker of mine fairly recently. Shout out to Dominique. And I was telling her, I said, yeah, I completely sabotaged something that I was taking steps in. I wasn't necessarily sure how to read it, but I was taking steps in. And when we didn't get to date number 2, I completely understood why. It was because I sabotaged it. Looking back at it, it's laughable the way that I sabotaged it. It was one of my first outings after my divorce, and I spent time pretty much bashing ladies and talking about the divorce. And as we were parting ways, one of the words that I didn't get it then, but it was said out loud to me, and I just didn't interpret it the way that I needed to interpret it, was the person said, well, tonight was definitely enlightening. That should have told me everything that I needed to know. I didn't catch that until well afterwards. And then I've started kind of replaying things that went bad over the last several months. And I was like, oh, yeah, I understand why that person said what they said. And it was me sabotaging at the time.
And see, sabotage it can be so discreet at times that you don't recognize that you're doing it. But some people sabotage so that they can prevent other pain. So, for example, if you are, you don't have to hold it here because, like, I feel, does your arm hurt?
No.
If you are about to, let's take a look at my example when we were in Nashville. I was on a bike and I had been struggling the entire time that I was on said bike. And I'd come to the top of a hill and I hadn't quite figured out the whole braking mechanism on that particular bike because it was different from every other bike I had ever been on in my life, which had been decades since I rode a bike. And I looked at the options before me. I had 2 options. I could immediately, at the top of that hill, I could immediately jump off the bike and possibly fall and injure myself. Or I could stay on the bike, be unable to stop, and roll into incoming traffic.
Was there ever a good option in that? Because both of those options are bad.
Both of those options are bad, but in the moment, those were the only 2 options that I was presented with. And sometimes that's what happens when we self-sabotage. We look at a situation and we only see 2 negative outcomes, and we opt for what we believe is the lesser of the 2 negative outcomes. Now, that is not to say that there probably wasn't a third option somewhere, but that is to say that sometimes when we are in the moment and we are in a distressing situation, we look at things and we only see 2 options, and both options are bad. So we opt for what we believe will be the lesser of the 2, and the lesser of the 2 is self-sabotage. So if I am faced with, do I stay in this relationship? Do I stay in this situation and potentially lead to additional heartbreak? Or do I end it right now and not have to deal with it? So even looking at the date that you had when you were freshly divorced, do I not talk about the pain that I have experienced from my marriage and things work out well, and then eventually this woman that I'm on a date with ends up doing the exact same thing to me that my now ex-wife did? Or do I rattle on right now about the ish my ex-wife put me through and end up running this woman away? 2 bad options, but in the moment, you chose the one that seemed the lesser of 2 evils.
Mm-hmm.
So we all do that. And I don't even think it would be defined as fight or flight. I think it's simply we're in the middle of a situation. We see 2 options. We only see 2 options. Both options look bad. We opt for the lesser of the bad situations, and the lesser just so happens to be self-sabotage. Because we can predict what that pain is going to be.
You try to control it.
Right. You're trying to control the situation. You can predict what it's going to be. When I was on that bike, I felt like I could control me falling right where I fell versus me getting hit by several cars in cross traffic. You were on that date, you felt like you could control the narrative and you were not going to get someone who was like your ex-wife because you're setting this tone right now. Like, this is not what I want.
Yeah.
And you were trying to control
100%,
it.
yes.
And that's what happens. So that's what happens with self-sabotage. Where like, I am going to set the tone for how bad I want this to be, for the level of pain that I can endure. And you're just going to have to deal with it. If you stick with it, you stick with it. If you don't, whatever, because I've already contained this pain that I'm going to experience.
That's true. I can't add anything to that. That is 100% true. Y'all, if y'all have some thoughts to that, either live or on the replay, put that in the comment section. Those are bars right there. Before we continue, let's go into the comments here, as we've had a few. David cleaned it up. He said, women are from Venus, men are from Mars. Did you ever read that book?
I never read that book.
Me neither. I do want to read it. I'm curious because it was written a long time ago. What still applies to today?
I was about to say that came out during my phase when I didn't read books. That's when Pink Monkey and Spark Notes read all books for me.
David Cunningham also said, I heard us as men need to learn a woman's love language. David, I'm going to modify that a bit. You might have heard that. Speaking for just me here for a second, people need to understand the other people's love language as well to try to honor that. Now, I know that Michelle's is physical touch and her primary, all right? Because you're not just boxed into one. Physical touch and quality time. Those are her two top primaries. I know this. And Michelle, I'm telling you, I believe I honor that as best as I can. It's like, well, we're not going to be able to just be up under each other, even though we're in the house, because we both lead independent lives. That's the way that I think. So if I'm missing something, let's communicate that later on after the show and we can talk about it. All right. For me, my primary is words of affirmation. And there's 5 of them, words of affirmation. And when you do stuff for people.
Acts of service.
Acts of service. Thank you. There's acts of service, quality time, physicalness.
Okay. So
Physical. Yeah, please lead it.
Quality time,
Mm-hmm.
physical touch,
Mm-hmm.
words of affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
What was that one?
Acts of service.
Acts of service and gift giving.
Gift giving. Thank you. That was the 5th one. I was trying to spin my brain. And there's a content creator out there that said that the ladies primarily use that to try to manipulate people to get them to do their bidding. The old me would have agreed with that. The new me has an understanding that you have to know who you are, as well as the other person's things that it's like what makes them tick, and give them what makes them tick. It might not be how you would do it, but you have to understand what makes them tick and try your best to honor that. And if you can't, find somebody that can. There's plenty of people out there. Like, there's more than one fish in the sea, essentially. I think too often people try to make something work that they shouldn't make work. When this person might not be able to give you what you need, it's okay. Somebody else out there could be better at it. So yeah, David, you said that us men need to learn women's love language. Everybody's different, man. But if you do follow the 5 love language principles, I actually think that it's worth knowing so that you can attempt to apply it in your relationships. But that's just my thoughts. Free T said that I give up too easily. Yes, I do. While I do have patience, I think better than most, there are some things that I just don't have patience for. So yeah. Let's see. Tarika said that she has sabotaged as well. In what way, Tarika? I'd love for you to take the time to share a story, if you will, or write some additional sentences to that in ways that you've sabotaged. Free T said, not you bashing us. Hey, I'll admit it. I had some instances in which I said some things that were not from a healed place. I'll just say it like that. I don't like the phrase when people go, who hurt you? But I was hurt. Plain and simple. I was hurt. But instead of being like, who hurt you? Why don't you try to hear somebody out and go, okay, let's talk about it. What's going on? Why do you think that way? And have a critical conversation about it.
I think the funniest thing in the world is that men don't like that phrase, who hurt you? But the reality is someone did hurt you, because you don't just get to that point all willy-nilly. You didn't just wake up and you're like, man, I can't stand the way these women do XYZ. Like, you didn't just wake up and come to that conclusion. Someone hurt you. What we don't want to admit readily in our adulthood is that we have been nurtured to get to the belief system where we are. We did not wake up as newborns with the ideology that we have today. Something in life put us on the trajectory that we're on and brought us to the point where we're able to think the way that we do. Someone happened to us, and that's how we got here. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that shaped our viewpoint for how we are comes from a level of hurt, a level of rejection, or some level of pain. One of my favorite quotes that we have in the school building is a quote from Thomas Edison that says that he didn't fail 10,000 times in creating the light bulb. He just found 10,000 different ways to not create the light bulb. And I love that because of the perspective. And I think when some people hear that question, who hurt you, they look at it from that failing 10,000 times perspective, when in reality, this is 10,000 different ways that I know not to do something. And I think that that's something that needs to be given some credence. And I say that as respectfully and lovingly as I possibly can. But we really do have to let go of the hurt that lies behind that question, who hurt you? Because the person who's often asking that question is trying to help you get to healing and helping you not stay in that stuck place. Just saying.
Very nice. I'm like, as I was trying to zoom out, I said, man, I wish we could just zoom in on you. That was very well put.
Thank you.
And I agree with everything. I don't have anything to add. Free T said, speak on it, Shell.
Thank you.
And was even giving you some hand claps as well. I was over here trying to fan you. Don't burn the studio down, babe.
Look, I'm over here. I finally put my hand next to the heater so I can stop yawning.
Shout out to Paul Bennett. PB is in the building. Said, good evening, King. Thanks for coming on the gray area last night. Y'all, thanks for having me up. I enjoy talking about my time in the service. I was an Air Force veteran for people that may be new to watching us. 10 years as an in-flight refueler on the KC-135. And I could talk about that stuff all day. Hopefully the message may have inspired somebody who was thinking about joining the Air Force and would like to get into enlisted aviation, despite all the aviation news that's been coming out over the last 10 days.
It's not even 10 days. It's 5.
All right. Free T said, yeah, because why is this question so triggering in the first place? Boom.
I'm going to be very honest, Free T. The reason why it's so triggering, and this is where I want men to know that you are supported and you are seen. The reason why it's so triggering is because so often that question has been asked by women as a way of getting the man to be vulnerable, and then that vulnerability is later used against them. So the question has a negative connotation with them. Women will say, not, so King, who hurt you? And how can we find a way to heal from it? But it can come off negative and be like, who hurt you? Like, why you acting like that? Like, as a way of invalidating the man's feelings and the man's right to think and be the way that he is. I'm not saying I don't understand where it comes from. I do, but I also say that just like a woman can't assume that every single man is going to hurt her the way that she has been hurt in the past, a man also can't assume that every woman is going to hurt him or take advantage of him the way that he's been hurt or taken advantage of in the past. Simply put, we can't look at the person in front of us and assume that they are going to be like the person who was behind us.
Free T said, in my experience, the question is asked after the man has bashed the woman. Like 100%. But that's the only thing that's going to be, like, there has to be a reason to prompt the question. So, yeah. Now, let me take a minute. Over on TikTok, I'm sorry that I can't display this, but somebody over on TikTok by the name of Please Matt has given us a gift over on TikTok, and that was dope. So I want to make sure that I acknowledge that and say thank you for the gift over on TikTok. Please, Matt, we appreciate that, my man. Now, let's see. Free T added to this, and then we're going to go to the next clip. Not you, King, just in my experience. That's why I've asked a question, because it was like, dang, he feels strongly. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, let's get to the next clip here. The next clip I am going to share. I have to lean in a bit. Okay. And this was Latarius Whitfield talking to Mr. Moss, DeAngelo. Have he stayed in a relationship longer with somebody to try to make it work? And the reason why he asked this question was talking about how hard it was to try to break that shell with Jess Whitty in trying to make that relationship blossom. So let's take a listen to the question and hear how DeAngelo had responded to it.
So let me ask you this, DeAngelo. Without throwing shade on past relationships, had you been in that experience before where you dealt with a woman that was trying to sabotage a relationship and you kept trying to hold on too long to somebody that you should have let go a long time ago? Or were you not this emotionally aware man in the past, and when a woman said, hey, listen, I don't think this is going to work, you're like, it's fine, bye.
Yeah,
Who were you back then?
That's a good question. You know, and to be honest, I'm the type of, that's the type of person that I am. And I'm not gonna lie. I believe in working for love, and if you see the hints of the characteristics that you look for in a person, it's worth trying to make it work, because dating is hard in general.
Facts.
So like, it's hard to connect with people who you have certain things in common with, let alone a lot. So I have been the type of person in the past where if things aren't going too well, I'll fight a little bit longer than most people would, because I believe in that.
Right.
But there is a point at which I'm just like, you know what, you're probably right. After a certain amount of times or a certain amount of examples of like incorrect behavior, it's like, no, at that point it's like, no. But with her, it wasn't like that. It was more like I could almost sense that there was this part of her that wasn't okay with opening up to me yet.
So what do you think about that?
I hear that, and I'm like, I know personally in my life, I have stayed in relationships longer than I should have been. I do want to clarify something, ladies, men. He is not saying date potential. He is saying that he saw something in previous relationships that gave him hope and made him decide to stay, because there were some flashes of what he really, really wanted.
Maybe the booty was nice. I gotta throw some humor.
Christian guy was saying that. Like, I don't think that's what he was saying. But just saying, like, sometimes, like, that's the thing. Like, I've stayed in relationships where I knew I wasn't supposed to be there that long. But what I recognize is that everyone has a breaking point. And because me, I'm full of metaphors. I got metaphors for days. I think of this story that I heard on both The Pursuit of Happiness and Eat, Pray, Love, where this guy was drowning in the ocean and he kept calling on God to save him. And the first time he said, God, save me, I'm drowning. And God sent somebody by with a boat. And the guy was like, hey, jump on, I'll help you. And the guy in the ocean was like, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. And then that boat went off. And then someone else came up and was like, here, let me save you. And he was like, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. And then the third person came and said, here, let me save you. And the guy who was drowning said, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. And then eventually the guy drowned and he died. And he gets to heaven. And he's like, well, God, why didn't you save me? And God is like, well, I sent 3 people your way and you turned them all away. And I think that sometimes that's what happens to us. We are in the midst of, asking God to send that person to us that is going to be the helpmeet that he has created for us. And he sends that person to us, and we continue to push them away and dismiss them, and eventually help that person stops coming. That person gives up. That person's just like, well, God, obviously this person is just not ready for me, so I'm going to move on to the blessing that you have next for me. And then that person who has been waiting for their helpmate is like, well, God, why didn't you send them to me? And God is like, I did. You didn't answer that person's DM. Like, you didn't respond to that person's DM. And I think that's where we get caught up a lot. God is trying to send that person to us, but sometimes we do continue to block our blessings because we're just like, this person isn't wrapped up in the package that I need them to be, or I'm still hearing things from my brokenness, or I don't like the way you've approached me in my DMs, or the way that you holler at me while I'm walking down the street, or something like that. And we continue to dismiss what God has sent to us. And sometimes we miss that, right? Like, you need to understand the message is a message no matter who the messenger is. The package is still the package. The gift is still the gift no matter what the external package may look like, because it's on the inside. It's all about what God is able to do. And God can do a lot with a little, and we need to be cognizant of that, especially if we're saying that we're Christians and we're following him and we're going to do what he says.
No doubt. How can somebody highlight that in themselves faster? Right? Because earlier you had talked about the fence, and eventually you're going to have to meet somebody at the fence to discern if you're going to allow them to come past that fence. But if you're like not taking steps towards the fence, you're staring at the fence, but you're apprehensive. How do you get people to the fence faster?
Well, see, I think a part of that is who your crew, who you hanging out with, right? I think if you continue to surround yourself with people who are going to positively inspire you and uplift you, you'll get to that fence a lot quicker. If you're going to hang out with people who are going to deter you and stop you from doing things in life, you won't get to that fence as quickly. It's literally like, think about a party, right? If you are at a party where like everyone is just like huddled around in circle, it's hard to get anywhere. It's hard to navigate. But if you are, for the lack of a better term, the center of attention at that party, and it's a soul train line type situation, the crowd opens up for you to be able to get through and get to your destination. And you really have to think about who you're surrounding yourself with. One of the things that Whitney said in the episode, maybe not in one of the clips that we showed, but in the episode, she talked about the fact that she essentially had people who could vouch for him. She ended up running in circles, ran into people who could vouch for him, and essentially talk about like the good guy that he was. She was able to lay eyes on him and realize that things weren't necessarily the same. And she had people positively, her friends, her family, her loved ones, those in her closest inner circle, pouring into her to help her get there. Excuse me, that's completely different than if you have someone who's like, oh no, him, look at him. Like, he ain't even like that. You don't need somebody like that. Like, that's completely different. It matters the crowd that you hang out with. It totally matters the crowd that you hang out with.
It does. It does 100%. David Cunningham over on YouTube said, King, the lyrics of "If You Think You Lonely Now, do-no-no, wait until tonight, girl." That's like all I know. I don't know no other lyrics to that song. Do you?
Nope.
And he put, just kidding. No doubt. We have 2 more points to bring up, and then we're going to wrap up the show here. So let's bring up the next clip, in which I'm questioning how authentic that they were.
I forgot you had a big thing about this one.
So
right, go ahead.
I talk about being authentic all the time. And Just Witty's content, her content was about singleness and being a woman and finding your husband. And she was in a whole relationship in which they talked about they wanted to keep it private. And in my opinion, that's more her than him. He's like a director or CEO of a nonprofit that deals with addiction across various things. And his own social media is nowhere near as big as hers. And one of the things that I admired and loved about DeAngelo is that you could tell he was about supporting her. In the first 20 minutes of the Dear Future Wifey podcast that we're getting these clips from, DeAngelo might have said a total of 6 words, as just Whitney's the bigger star, if you will. She's the more known. And you didn't see him sitting off to the side, huffing and puffing like Travis Hunter's fiance wife was doing. You saw him supporting his wife and answering or speaking whenever he was asked questions. He didn't jump in on anything. And I thought that what he did was a masterclass. Really, what both of them did was a masterclass of how to support each other. But I questioned their authenticity a bit. I questioned their authenticity when they're about, or she was about, singleness and being authentic. Yet in her own relationship, she kept it private. Now, we've talked about things that you shouldn't share as a couple. Paul's been married for 30,000 years. He'll say the same thing, that there are things that you shouldn't invite out to other people. It's just between y'all two. And people have even told me that, hey, man, I think it's kind of dangerous that you and Michelle are putting y'all's relationship on Al Gore's freaking internet like that. And I'm like, well, we grown. We don't necessarily share like everything, but it's not that, like, I don't have anything to hide, but it has to be relevant to what we're talking about. The only thing that, and I still view this, I'm not going to say I still view it as a restriction. There are some things that Michelle said that she would rather us have had a conversation about something first before it's talked about on air.
At the end of the day, I'm a public school teacher, okay?
What does that mean?
And he is a federal employee, meaning that especially in my district, some people look for reasons to get teachers thrown out the classroom. So that's why I'm cautious about some of the things I say.
Yeah, I am too. I could hear that with a broken ear and be like, oh, so you don't trust that I'm looking out for both of us?
No, I think you have a little bit more liberty in what you can say online than I can.
That's true. Yet somebody with a broken ear would come back and say, while that's true, Michelle, you still have to trust that I won't say anything that would put you or me in jeopardy.
But that's the thing, like our level of what's jeopardy and what's not are two different places.
This is an exercise. I hear that, but you're saying that you don't trust that I would use an appropriate level of judgment?
I think that our level of judgment would be different in this matter.
What do y'all think? Let's play the next clip. All right, let's get this thing clipped up here. And I'm questioning their authenticity. Take a listen.
Here y'all are creating this app and the data project. Did y'all feel like, let me ask y'all, did y'all get people questioning y'all?
In the comments.
Yeah. People like, oh, y'all shit.
I just want to be looking at them. We just want to say, they're like, is these single? In my mind, I'd be like, nah. Nah, bro. No. But they was always nice. Yeah.
Have you ever watched a guy, like, while y'all was at the event, come shoot that shot at Whitney?
I've seen some stuff. I've seen some stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen some stuff, and you know, but again, she always handles herself well. And like, and the cool thing about it, you know, don't paint me as like the most. Anything can happen and everything's okay. And like, you know, there are moments where it's like, all right, I don't know if I was super comfortable with this right here. So let's talk about this. Yeah, like let's talk about what this should look like going forward. You know, because it's you gotta navigate stuff. I still think she's single.
Yeah.
Right. So
That
like,
part.
you know, it's like a game.
And no, I think that's a really good point because in a relationship, you have to decide what's boundaries and what's not.
So they're going to events. They're pretending like they're single while they're courting each other. And I'm like, they're both Christians. To me, that's lying.
So
That's lying.
I'm not going to disagree with that. Yet I do also recognize that her brand was singleness. Like she literally, the majority of her jokes that she told on her content revolved around singleness. And I don't know what made her decide on that December day to like finally admit that she was in a relationship.
So she could stop lying?
But her content did shift after that. So like, I don't know. Like, what I won't say is I'm not in her marriage. I'm not in her relationship with God. Who knows? Maybe the Lord told her to keep this hidden for a period of time. I can't speak to that. But what I will say is I agree that it comes off a little bit, well, wow. But then I'm like, but what could she have said? What could she have said 2 years ago to be able to protect her relationship, but then also give space for authenticity in her relationship? Like, what could she have said? What could she have done?
Nobody's going to like my answer. Be authentic. Because she would have in her private subscribers area, she would have conversations about being single. And I was a fan of her. So I did sub for about 6 months to her fan Instagram thing. And she would have private conversations with people, or not in the group, basically talking about navigating life as a single Christian. And I'm thinking about this, and this was during the same time that her and DeAngelo were in a relationship going through all the motions.
But is that lying? Because I can tell you what it's like to be a single Christian, because I was a single Christian.
Oh, please. What is it like to be a single Christian?
I'm just saying, like, I can talk to you about that because I was a single Christian at one point. Just because I'm not right now doesn't mean I don't still have that lived experience and that I still can't talk to you from that lived experience.
Okay, but we're out. We have a dating app that we've built together, and you're the more known person, like how they are, and people are coming up to you because they're interested in getting to know you, and you have to pretend and lie.
Okay, so that's where I'm not going to disagree with you. That is where the deception comes in. But what I'm saying is it's not really a lie or a deception if she continues to push content out to her paid subs to talk to you all about singleness in Christianity, because you can still speak from that place even though you're no longer in it anymore, right? Like, I still speak from many hurt places that I may not still be in right now. I still speak about the things that happened to me as a child, although I'm no longer in those places anymore. But you're right, to have been in a whole entire relationship and go out in public places where people are trying to shoot their shot, but the reality is they are shooting with a deflated ball. I don't know, basketball's not my thing. They're shooting with the deflated ball, and it really has no potential of going anywhere because you're already in a relationship. I will admit that is deceptive.
Okay. What do y'all think? Do y'all think that that was deceptive, or was she doing the things that she needed to do and he was doing the things that he needed to do? Let me clean that up. Did they do the things that they needed to do to protect their relationship? I'm curious what people would say. Even those that are going to catch this on the replay, put it in the comment section.
Because, I mean, the way I look at it, like, you do, like, I see what David is saying, and I don't necessarily know if I agree that she was trying to protect the money from her brand as much as I would say she's trying to protect her brand. Like, for me, I look at that as that's two different things. I don't have a rolling stream of income coming from my brand the way she does. However, I still have a brand that I try to maintain because I'm giving credence and respect and reverence, that's the word. I'm giving reverence to God for having created said brand, and I just want to honor it. So there's certain things that I don't do or say publicly or otherwise. They're just certain things that I don't do or say. That's just me. But that's not me protecting the money from it. That's me protecting the brand, because the brand isn't mine. Like, if your ministry is, if you recognize that God has given you a ministry, sometimes it's not about the money. For some people it is, But sometimes it's not about the money. It's overall just protecting this gift that God has given you the best way possible.
Paul Bennett says she was a whole Decepticon, or they were a whole Decepticon.
And again, I will completely say that is a part where I disagree. That going out into public and making people think that, allowing people to believe that you were still single and not correcting them, especially like it would be one thing if she and her husband had, when they were dating, if they had gone into a space and no one tried to hit on either of them, but they also never said that they were in a relationship. That's completely different.
I agree.
From you going into a space acting as though you're not in a relationship and people are actively hitting on you. Those are two completely different situations. One is deception, one is not deception. You can't control what people think. If people think that you're single, people think that you're single. What you can do is not feed into that. Like, related but not, I remember being in a relationship with someone, and I know that this is petty, but this is where we are in, 2000, whatever. He didn't post about me on his social media profile. And in 2025, not posting about someone on a social media platform is the equivalent of you thinking you're single and having other people believe that you're single too.
Agreed.
So he didn't post about me on his social media profile. And when his friends would make comments about like other content, because it's not that he wasn't posting any woman whatsoever. He wasn't posting me. So when he would post certain things and his friends would make certain remarks, I'm just like, so you're not going to correct that person? Like, you just going to let that comment slide and stuff like that? Like, I think certain things, and this is just me, I think certain things are disrespectful when you're in a relationship. Now, I'll admit, if I were just Whitney's husband, with the mindset that I have, I would feel some type of way. Like, if you and I were in a relationship and we were, for whatever reason, like not publicly sharing it, I would have major issues with people hitting on you and you not politely correcting them.
As you should.
Like, I would have issues with it. There are just certain things that I could just never do. And that's one of those things.
I would like to read what Free T just posted.
Okay.
Oh, see, I'm not posting nobody until I'm married. Sorry. I guess I'm deceptive too then. Social media is where I draw the line.
But
now,
I don't disagree with Free T, specifically her saying it. And you know why?
Why?
Her content's not about her being single. Her content's not about her being in a relationship. Her content is about something completely different. All the content that Free T posts, like when she posts on her YouTube, that's not what her demographic is about.
Correct.
When she posts on Facebook for stuff, her stuff is very family oriented.
Mhm.
Very, very family oriented. So for her, that makes complete and utter sense.
It does. And I'm not justifying or agreeing just because we know her, but that makes sense.
Right. So Free T, like, we're not talking about you because we understand that. Like, your content has never been about that. I understand that. Like, I've seen some people, good, bad, or whatever. I have someone who, she took a break from Facebook for a really long time, for like over a year. And she has an Instagram presence, but you know how Instagram is. Like, that algorithm is like all messed up. And sometimes you don't see things that are posted. So one day when she came back to Facebook, she was like, hey, y'all, it's me. It's been a long time. By the way, I'm engaged. And then like she slowly started coming back to Facebook. And then the next thing you know, you did see her post a picture of like her wedding and everything like that. That's different. Like, if you pull back from social media altogether during that phase for whatever reason, that's something totally different than completely having, and it's not so much that in her case, it's not so much that people didn't know that she was in this relationship with this man. It's that she wasn't on social media. So I get it. When you draw the line of social media being the avenue where people have all this access to you, I completely get that. I can completely respect that. What I disagree with is when your whole business and brand is this one particular thing and you're completely doing, like, you're in a different situation with it. So like Freecy, nah, you different.
Before we go to the last video here, and we're a little bit past time, I want to be respectful of you because you have to work tomorrow. I don't. Are we able to go at least another 15 minutes max?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I want to acknowledge somebody that contributed over on TikTok as well. Sorry that I can't post it on the big screen right here, but shout out to Coach J House. That's my homie over on TikTok. He also sent a gifter badge as well and has followed the King and Me show over on TikTok as well. That's my homie. He's an Army veteran, and he's coaching the young men out there in Texas, not just his son, but the community there. They've been winning championships wherever he's coached at. So I want to give a salute to Coach J House in the building, and thank you for the gifted badges over on TikTok, man. Michelle and I appreciate that. And he said, glad to see that I'm doing well post-surgery. And he said, thanks. And he always wants to show support for his brother. So I appreciate that, Jay. Thank you. Thank you. Free T said, King, you read my message exactly the way I wrote it. I know. And she said, I love that. Oh, that's awesome. All right, so let's get to the last video here. And in this last video, it is where Jess Whitty is talking about sabotage and how it's real. And I believe that DeAngelo is going to include some things in this as well. And I thought that it was a really good observation that they both had. And I'm curious what y'all would say to this clip. Let's take a look.
Yes. Like, sabotage is a real thing. The Lord stopped me in my kitchen one day and was like, you dealing with sabotage. You have to be strategic with sabotage and processing. So I come from a divorced family. I wanted to be married, but fears, it's like, why am I not excited about marriage? What is that about?
That's good.
And I really had to look at that, because you could say you want to be married, but then when it get real, you be like, oh, what is that resistance? And so I remember I planned a date for us because we was going back and forth. And I got us a journal, a couple of journals. And his first goal he wanted to write down was the month we'll get married. I'm like, you starting off heavy. And it turned into a whole thing. And for him, it's like simple. It's like, you strategic. And so
Yeah, we done been through premarital and the whole thing.
yeah, and so within myself, I was like, I don't want to hold you back. I know marriage is your goal.
You say you want to hold him
I
back?
want to hold you. Yes.
Why would you go through pre-engagement? Because y'all went through premarital before y'all even got engaged. So why'd you go through that? Why'd you go through? Because essentially that's pre-engagement counseling.
Absolutely.
So why'd you go through that?
Well, when you start counseling, I don't know if I knew the magnitude.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest, and I hope I could help somebody know the magnitude of stuff.
Man.
But fears is real.
So you went there as a couple, and they talking about building the life together.
Absolutely.
But you didn't say, oh, one day.
We gotta get married, because you don't know that timeline.
Yeah.
You want to be prepared for the ride, but you don't know when they're gonna press to take off.
That's real.
And
That is so real.
I remember him. He was really passionate at the table, and he was really fighting for us. Like, I was like, I don't know if I have the fight inside of me. I haven't seen a lot of people fight for love.
Oh, that's good.
And I felt so awkward and weird, and we just stood in it, and we walked to the car, and he prayed for us in the car. And I'm like, you're such a good man. Such a good man. I remember always saying that. And the premarital that we went through was with Pastor Love. Pastor Susan. And I remember her saying, either you're going to have faith or you're going to have fear. That's it. I feel like that was a moment where he could have been like,
I was closest right there.
I remember.
Because you basically blessed him to be in the next relationship with somebody, be married to somebody else.
I know.
And she had never,
Sabotage.
up until that point, she had never gave me like feedback that said, you know what, I'm okay if this doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Like that actually hurt me. I cried. I actually cried in that moment. I was like, man, because I felt like that was the most distant we had ever been, because for the first time in our relationship, we weren't on the same page. I'm like, did I overcommit? Did I think that something was happening that really wasn't happening?
Had that man questioning after trying to commit, doing all the things, being respectful early on, because this was later in the live stream. Early on in the clip, he talked about how, or she talked about how he wasn't saying anything sexual with her. Everybody that follows her knows that she's a virgin. And he said for him, he liked her. He wasn't trying to go there. He wasn't trying to make the conversation about that or anything. He wanted her to get to know him get to know her, and they build on this thing. And this guy's done all the things, and yet she still tried to sabotage it.
But see, I don't necessarily like the way you're saying she still tried to sabotage it.
Why not?
Because it makes it seem like she had an active role in that. And what I mean by that is, again, going back to that bike situation and your date situation. It's like she was at the top of that hill and she saw two painful options and she just opted for the one that seemed like it was a controlled amount of pain. And I think sometimes we do that subconsciously based on the hurt that we've been through, based on the trauma that we've experienced. I think we do that subconsciously and we don't have as much control of the sabotage that we are doing, self-sabotage. Sorry, let me clarify. I don't think we have as much control over the self-sabotage as people think that we do in that moment. Like, you see me sabotaging myself with that whole bike situation, and you're just like, well, wasn't there a third option to just like not have it? And I'm like, no, because you weren't in my trauma in that moment to see it. You say, thinking back on that date that you had with that woman, and she's probably thinking, well, didn't he have the option to talk about anything else except for his previous marriage? And in your mind, it's like, no, I didn't. Like, these were things like in the moment, I don't think we see that that we're sabotaging, we're doing self-sabotage. But B, even if in some level we can see that, I don't think we recognize that it's as dangerous as the other person may perceive it. Like, I think we see it not with rose-colored glasses, but we just don't see the detrimental hurt that it carries as the other person sees it.
You're right. If I was DeAngelo, which I'm not, he is his own person, I don't think I could have survived that. Her basically saying, you know what? It is what it is. That's what I heard.
And see, respectfully, you heard that through your own hurt and your own brokenness.
I don't disagree with that.
And that's where it comes in that every person is not for every person.
Correct.
Because he heard that and he's like, okay, God, you've already told me that this woman is supposed to be my wife. So I'm going to need you to have this real conversation with her so that she can get on board with what you've already ordained for our lives. And respectfully, that's not a conversation you're going to have. But the thing is, we can't, and this is something that, comes into the whole creatorverse, that we hear someone's content or someone's story and we're automatically like, I don't know if I could have done that. And the reality is we hear whatever they're going through our lens of brokenness, through our lens of pain, through the things that we've gone through in our own lives. And we project how this person should react or how this person should feel. And what we should do is take it as a learning moment to be able to self-identify what we're doing within ourselves that we may need to tweak, that we may need to improve. So like, I hear all the clips, I hear that particular comment, and I'm just like, I've done that. I have explicitly done that. I've done that with us. There are plenty of moments in our relationship where I'm just like, you know what? Like, I don't know. And it's simply because I have so much trauma. I have so much pain that came long before you. And there are little things that happen that trigger things that have happened in my past that were so much bigger. And I try my hardest to not self-sabotage, but I do. Like, I literally, like I said, I have a blog coming out about it. I literally talked about it today on my monthly message.
You did.
There was also something that the Coach Greg Adams episode that you were watching the other day, one day last week, I can't think of what day it was, but coincidentally, it was during the part where you were asleep. So I don't know if you heard it, But Coach was talking about how women will experience, and I'm paraphrasing, but women will experience thousands of little pains from their relationship with their man, and they won't say or do anything. They'll just take it and they'll keep on moving. But a man will experience one from his woman and flip out. And then a man will see a woman finally decide to leave after one situation and think that she's leaving because of that one, when then the reality is she's had all of these many situations build up, and that's just the last one.
Ooh, I got comments on that, but
He said that, and it stood out to me because I'm just like, I have so many traumas or many triggering moments that happen, and I brush a lot off. I just whatever. But I can understand just Whitney getting to that point where she's just like, you know what? I kind of pushed aside all the other things that triggered pain in my past. But this, like, I don't know. And I can understand how you get there. I can.
We can do a whole episode on just that part of what you just said. I should write that one down so that we can come back to it. Let's acknowledge some of the questions here, and then we're going to wrap up the show. Free T said, did they wait until marriage to have sex? Do we know this information? I'm curious. They didn't directly say it, but
they very much alluded to it at the beginning that they did wait.
That they did wait
a virgin until marriage.
And cross the threshold. Absolutely. So the question wasn't asked like that, but they did consummate the marriage.
Yeah.
Is that the right thing?
They very much talked about it. Mm-hmm.
And David Cunningham said, I wonder if she was wearing her virginity as a badge of honor. That's an excellent question. Some people in her comment section, because she doesn't delete comments, some people talked about that. And it's kind of hard, because if you were to ever meet a virgin, their virginity is important to them. And in my opinion, I think it's 50-50 on meeting a virgin, and they let you know it so that it's important to them and that you can honor that and respect it, or them coming off and saying it as if they're wearing it like a badge of honor. I've never really spoken to virgins to ask them. I can only say I know of one, and I don't believe she would wear it as a badge of honor. I need to ask her about that, by the way.
So it turns out we have another celebrity in the building.
Oh, we got another celebrity in the building. Shout out to Steph and to Joy. What up? Said, so true. As women, we may be concerned. I'm sorry. Women, we're concerned as we may be overreacting, so we keep things quiet. Oh, man. I can't comment on that right now because we're going to go past time, and she has to get ready for school tomorrow or for work tomorrow. David Cunningham said, holding on to things is like a powder keg. It is. And I was guilty of doing it in my marriage. My only other longest relationship besides the one that I'm in now was just under 6 months, or right around 6 months. And with that, I didn't really hold things. And with Michelle, I don't hold things, but I really try to process stuff before I bring it to her. And even then, you know what? Never mind. So Tarika said she was in fear. Yep, I believe so. So that's our live stream for today. Today was a little bit different. We had a lot of simultaneous viewers, by the way. Thank everybody that tuned in. That was dope. That made it fun. It also made time fly by as well. To Latarius Whitfield and the Dear Future Wifey podcast, I put the link to the episode in the description. You can see it on Facebook and YouTube. The other platforms, you're not able to really view it like that well. But if you like that kind of podcast or live stream, go and check out the Dear Future Wifey podcast over on YouTube, and I believe Facebook as well. YouTube is definitely where he has his most subs at. To the people that tuned in on TikTok, thank you. That was dope. We appreciate y'all for the gifts and the likes over on that platform as well. And to the people on the other platforms, as well as Perry Productions Facebook page. Thank you for tuning in as well. Michelle, do we have anything to close us out with before we go off live today?
Nope.
Okay. Y'all, I'm a little bit more mobile. and we end our show with a kiss. So this week, I'm going to get up and give her a kiss. I forgot to give a shout out to Pete. Pete did come in and comment as well. Pete, if you're still listening, thank you for commenting. You always hit the like button as well. And just like with Paul, I appreciate being on y'all's platform yesterday to talk about my military service. I believe that's it. Let's end this thing here with some smooches.
You sure you okay? Your little knees crack.
Yeah. Hey, they didn't hear it unless this mic picked up everything. To everybody that commented, y'all, we give y'all a salute. And we'll see y'all next Monday, 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.